Welcome to the Awkwardness Podcast, the only podcast we know of where artists talk about the very beginning of their musical journeys and play one of the first songs they ever wrote. I'm your host, Rose Shawn, and my co-hosts are everyone's bestie, Terence, and everyone's daddy, and somehow also everyone's bestie, Tony Tancredi. Today on the pod, we're talking to a guy who you may know as a founding member of one of our favorite bands, Local Natives. Ryan Hahn co-founded what would become Local Natives with Taylor Rice when he was just 13 years old, and since then they have toured the world multiple times, played pretty much every festival you can think of, worked with some of the coolest producers and guest vocalists in the music biz, and even appeared on screen as a cover band in Apple TV's The Shrink Next Door with Will Ferrell and Paul Rudd. But Ryan has just put out his first solo record, and we're super excited about it, so we will talk about that. But first, you know what we do here. We're going to talk about jam bands, Rick Dees in the weekly top 40, ripping off Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and the quest for the perfect clean tone. Listen up for a truly heartwarming definition of the word weaving and a real deal digital 8-track demo. Let's go back in time with Ryan Hahn.
Back in the day, you were like this. I feel like you were on top of it.
Yeah.
Like if Tony was around, we were going to make it to the venue. Everything was going to be good.
Yes.
Oh, that's a huge compliment.
Tony
from me. Thank you.
Tancredi, everybody's daddy.
That's a bumper sticker, yeah.
Everybody's daddy.
I do have some interesting, like, 1,000 little ants kind of like scurrying about
I hear that
in
too,
my
actually.
right ear. Digital fountain.
I don't mind ants.
Well, as long as it's not recording, it doesn't bother me.
Now I hear the ants and the right thing. Scurrying ants is a very appropriate image for what it sounds like. They are hard at work.
They're doing something.
Yeah.
Are they marching? Red and black and
Oh
something,
boy.
something? Do they all do it the same?
Yeah. Candyman. There was that part where he kind of does that scat rap at the end where he's just like, loose end, chop, chop. I was in that music video. I told you that, right?
Who is that? Was that Dave Matthews?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Ants in New York, they shot that music video. There was a secret show, Z100. Like, you had to be the 100th listener. There's a whole story here. I'll drop it real quick while Tony works.
This is very nice.
Weezer concert, Roseland Ballroom. I was there.
Weezer.
Back then, there was crowd surfing. This was 94. So, like, you'd crowd surf, and then you'd get passed to the front, and then security would kind of, like, kick you out. You'd walk around the venue, go back inside the venue, and then go back at it. That was kind of the thing. So, at one point, walking outside, I ran into this guy who worked for Z100, and I knew about the secret Dave Matthews show. So I'm like, hey, can you put me on that list? And he's like, tell you what, you hand out all these flyers for Z100 and I'll put your name. And I gave him the name. It was the 90s. So he had to write it down. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. And so I showed up to the concert. I was in line with all these people who were the 100th caller. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if my name's there. And it was. So I got in the show and that was really fun.
Yeah.
And then at the show, Dave Matthews said, oh, we're going to be shooting a music video, like we're passing out these flyers for it. And so everyone at that show got a flyer to go to this like pier. I forgot where it was, just a pier like on the Hudson or something. And that's where it was like a warehouse. And that's where the Ants Marching video was shot. And so we were all like audience members there. But the funnest thing is we got to hang out with the band. And we got to,
Yes.
I hung out with Dave, and I didn't hang out with Stefan. I hung out with Boyd and Carter Beauford, all the guys. And by the end of it, we actually spent a lot of time together, which was kind of weird because we were high school students. Like thinking, but it was very sweet, but like, anyway, when it was time to say bye and the day was ending, like saying bye to Dave, and, he's like, I'm like, oh, you probably don't even remember my name. And he gave me a big hug. He's like, bye, Terence. And I'm like, oh my God. So that was very special. So that's my Dave Matthews Band
That's so
story
rad.
from 94.
94.
Yeah.
That definitely was a band like in college that like, everyone was like suddenly into like jam bands and stuff. But I feel like Dave Matthews touched upon that. It was like them,
Oh, yeah.
OAR.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Fish, obviously.
yeah.
And he made violins accepted and
Yes.
rock. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That was his fault? He made those?
I love that meme too of him dancing that's going around. I don't know if you've seen it. He's got some wild dance moves.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember that. Yeah.
have to
and
check
then
it
all
out.
the girls I knew were like obsessed with him, thought he was like hot. Which,
Dave Matthews.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean-
I think he used to be hot.
Yeah,
like back
well-
in the day,
Tom
right?
Hanks a little bit.
He
no?
had
Like-
Riz for sure.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think.
Well, you write a song like Crash.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Take my shirt off.
Yeah.
Basically. I never quite drank the Kool-Aid to that level, but
Yeah.
it was in the air.
Welcome, Ryan.
Right?
Oh yeah, we're here at Totoro's
This is
house.
exciting.
Season
Rock with
3.
this.
Thank you for
Ryan
having
Hahn.
me.
Yeah.
Hello. I haven't seen you in so long, and I
know.
missed you, buddy.
I've missed you too.
Yeah. What's funny is you look exactly the same. You look younger,
way.
actually. Yeah, I'm serious.
Really?
Yeah.
Even with like the dad life and the no sleep, you think so?
You look younger. Like I don't
Wow.
see any bags.
Amazing.
Yeah.
This is news to me, but thank you.
How old is your child?
He's about to turn 1.
Oh yeah, so you
Yeah.
haven't slept in
adorable.
like a year.
No. And it's just weird because my whole life I just like stayed up late. Like I was a night owl, and like for the past year, getting up at 6 a.m. and the morning is nice. Honestly, like
Yeah.
You found out late.
I never knew. Yeah.
I've only seen sunrises when I stayed up all night. But
Yeah.
it turns out that's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess too, like touring is not like a super sleep rich environment.
Man, when I think of some of the floors that we slept on, Tony, like, I mean, some of those early
Oh, yeah.
tours, like, I remember going to some house on one of the tours we did where they had a pile of cardboard boxes and we just
yeah.
kind of flattened them.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that was like the cushioning to sleep on.
They're like,
And,
here, all 10,
Yeah, we're
all
like-
10 of you, please.
Yeah, we're like,
I'm
all
sorry,
right.
really?
Yeah, no, it was in Seattle. And
That's such a Seattle thing.
yeah,
Wow.
it was either sleep in
Grunge.
the van or sleep on the cardboard boxes. And
And we chose the cardboard
Yeah.
boxes, and it was
Yeah.
nice.
Well, you couldn't probably sleep 10 people in the van at the same time.
no,
No, I mean, we tried.
yeah.
And
But-
by van, was it just like a tiny van?
Like a
No,
suburban.
no.
Okay.
So we had two. Well, depending on what tour, some of the tours I'm thinking about is we had two 15 passengers,
Yep.
and there was 3
Oh,
bands.
okay.
It was Vauxhall Broadcast, the Local Natives, and my band, the Union Line. So all 15 of us would just like mob to a venue and play, and then just at the end of the show, whoever was, because we were rotating who was headlining.
Yeah.
So whoever's headlining would be like, "Hey, we need a place to stay. Come talk to us at the merch booth." And there would always be people at the merch booth just talking to us. And
Yeah.
and I would say like 95% of the nights, someone was like, "Come to my house, all 15 of you," and we would, and it would sometimes be very sketchy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, some of those stories I feel like we still tell, like in interviews, like
really?
one in
Oh, that's
Philadelphia where there some guy just like put on a bunch of murder mysteries
Yeah.
and sat quietly by himself drinking like
Kelsey
beer.
PBRs.
told us that
Did he tell
story
it? Okay.
on the
Yeah,
pod.
I feel like
Yes.
that story has grown because I wasn't even there for that one. I think because that was a night where they were like, okay, we can half of us go here, half of us go to like a hotel
Oh,
with
no.
somebody. We're
Yeah,
like-
yeah.
Oh no.
But every once in a while, we'd end up at like I remember like we were in like Wyoming or something. We ended up this beautiful like farm ranch house or
The
something.
family, yeah.
And the family was like, "Here, you guys can like shower and we'll make like dinner or breakfast." And like we were just like, "This is incredible." But then yeah, other nights it was pretty sketchy.
right.
sketchy.
The highs and the lows
Yeah.
of the DIY
For
life.
sure.
Oh my
Some
God.
first
Yeah.
tour stuff.
Oh.
Yeah. But I mean, seriously, why the murder mystery? That's so bizarre.
I don't know. I mean, God, yeah.
Just trying to see if he could be found through them or something.
he was
Also,
dropping clues
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
time.
He probably
Yeah,
did that every night.
for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'll be on this one.
Yeah.
Nope, I'm safe again.
Listening for himself. That's so
Yeah,
funny.
Oh my God. That's pretty early on, but like,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
go a little bit further back.
All
go
right,
way back.
Go back.
So like, what is like the beginning of, I guess, your memory of music for yourself?
Boy. Probably like listening to like God, now I'm like actively going back in my mind. I'm like, okay, before.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember loving that Michael Jackson song, the one from Free Willy.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, same.
And like
Oh,
literally
yeah.
like driving around with my parents, like waiting for it to come on and being like, yeah, it was like,
That's like an epic song.
It was.
such an epic
Yeah.
song. It almost feels like a gospel song.
It
or
is,
something,
totally.
right?
Yeah.
And just waiting for that song to come on and then like trying to like tape it.
There we
like,
go.
There was a lot of that back in the day. You'd wait for a song you liked and then try to tape it onto a
Oh, yeah.
cassette.
Oh man, it was the worst when like the Stings would come in early, like you're
yeah.
listening to, blah, blah,
Cut
blah.
out.
You know,
Yeah.
you're like, let me hear the end of the song.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
cut
yeah.
out the end. I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was such a vibe.
Or it was like a radio DJ thing to talk right until like the vocals
Yeah.
came in.
Yeah.
Or
Oh
something,
yeah,
right?
yeah. The
So
whole
you're like,
intro.
"Oh,
You're like,
you're
come on,
ruining
man."
it.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
72 degrees.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. I
But-
can't afford to buy this record. Stop
Totally.
talking.
But I mean, I think like then I think you know, it was a lot of country music, like Garth Brooks.
Oh, nice.
I loved me some Garth Brooks.
What era was that of Garth Brooks?
It was the one, I mean, I feel like he had so many hits. There was this like stretch where, was it?
Is it like
I've
Friends?
got friends in
yes,
low places.
Low Places.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
such an epic song too.
Yeah.
Like that's really such a Hey Jude sing along type vibe.
So many, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, to this day, if that song comes, I mean, like if anybody
everybody.
chooses that at karaoke, the whole bar is
Totally.
singing it.
Yeah, he was like, and was he also like on his stadium shows flying around the venue
yeah.
like Pink or something,
Yes.
like attached to wires?
Yes,
like,
yes. No,
this is like
No
in
way,
the
Garth
90s.
Brooks.
I think so.
Garth
Whoa.
Brooks. Oh, for sure. No, he was probably the first like crossover artist when they talk
Yeah.
about like, you know, kind of crossing over from country to pop. He was so popular. His stage shows were bananas. Yeah,
Yeah.
he would fly around.
That's
he wore
insane to
crazy
me.
outfits. I think he won like, you know, entertainer of the year from like, I don't know, People magazine or something like that. That's so funny. And you're like, how old? And you're like, yeah, I really relate to this.
Totally. I just like, yeah, Garth Brooks was it. My family did a lot of like road trips in like the minivan with like the wood paneled sides. Like, you know,
nice.
that
Love
was
those.
just, yeah. So a lot of that, a lot of Beach Boys.
Of course.
And then we moved to Singapore when I was pretty young. And so we would get, what was it, Rick D's or something? And
yeah,
he
weekly
would-
top 40.
Yeah.
Top 40. So I just like knew the top 40 because I would just sit around like whatever coloring to like whatever was, and it was like, what was it? What if God was one of us?
Yeah.
Remember that
Oh,
song? I
yeah.
just remember
Joan
that always
Osborne,
playing.
yeah.
Joan Osborne, yeah.
Know every lyric.
Seal was big. Alanis
yeah.
Morissette.
Oh man.
Yeah, so anything from that era. I don't know, the radio. I was just, obsessed.
Yeah,
was the
I mean,
best,
it's interesting because, like, well, Terence was talking about that
Z100.
the Z100
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
New York.
and you know that 100th caller thing, and it's just I kind of reminded me like, oh yeah, the radio used to be such a bigger deal
Oh my gosh.
because there was no on demand anything unless
Yeah.
you like had the record or the CD or
totally.
tape or whatever.
It was also like a way of like a community building because it
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, you know, instead of going to the record store, you could just like listen in, and that's kind of like as close as you could get
or
for
like
some people.
call in a dedication.
I remember even like when I was I think I was like a freshman or something in high school, and K-Rock had the Furious 5 at 9.
Oh yeah,
And it was like, I think it was around the time that Kid A or Amnesiac came out. And so like I would listen to the Furious 5 every night and be like, oh my God, this song's number 3 now. I'm excited. And so one night I was just like, I'm going to call in and request like a song. And I didn't think they were going to pick up. So I called and the person picked up, and I was so flustered that the only song I could think of was the last one they had just played. So I requested Smash Mouth All Star.
Yeah.
That's
Play it
only,
again.
like I wanted to like request like Radiohead or At the Drive-In or something, but I was
man.
just so like, Smash Mouth.
Could you imagine like after All Star, they play everything in its right place?
Yeah,
It's just like
yeah.
do. People are like, what's happening?
Yeah.
that's so
I like
funny.
that you requested the last song they just played.
I just like my brain like shut off. I couldn't
Yeah,
think
yeah.
of any song I like listened to. I mean, it's wild. I bet if we turned on K-Rock right now, it would probably be the same kind of 10 songs that were playing back then. Like it's probably Foo Fighters, Green
Yeah.
Day, like Offspring.
yeah.
Like,
yeah. That's fine with me.
yeah.
No, I'm like,
know?
keep it 90s,
Yeah.
guys. I don't know about anything after that.
Yeah.
I thought K-Rock wasn't like spinning music anymore.
No, they are. They've changed their format a little bit. This was like big news maybe a year or so ago where they were like, we're KROQ now because we're not a rock station anymore. But it seems like they've kind of walked that back too.
Oh, really?
But they will play like, I don't know, Billie Eilish or something now. They're just kind of going more into that like Jack FM, like we play what we
Oh,
want.
everything,
vibe.
yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not, you know,
You remember Indie 103?
I was
Oh,
just
yes.
going to
Rest
say
in
that.
peace.
I mean, that was like a laptop plugged into a receiver for a long time.
my
That was
God.
it.
Well, that's how we got our first manager. Like literally, Phil. You know
Yeah,
Phil.
yeah.
He heard us on Indie 103 and then hit us up on MySpace.
I know.
He didn't even have a
Love it.
profile photo. I'm sure
Yeah.
Kelsey told that
Yeah.
story. But
Yeah.
like Indie 103 was awesome.
Well, let's take
It
it
was.
back. You know, it's like because we heard Kelsey's side of it.
Yeah.
But like, let's hear your journey.
Well, we
we
gotta.
gotta get back to you.
Well, so you're like listening to the radio.
Oh,
Did your
right,
parents
yeah.
like put you
Yeah.
in piano lessons or anything
Rick
like that?
D's.
I mean, oh yeah, God, Rick D's. No, there was then like in Singapore, back in Singapore, you had to either be in choir or in orchestra band.
that
You
was,
had to
like,
choose.
required?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
And,
great.
Yeah, that's great.
It was awesome. And then I remember it was like everyone wanted to play trumpet. There was like 20 guys playing trumpet.
Legit,
and I was like,
in my middle school too.
Yeah.
It was like
I
way
played
too many
trumpet.
trumpeters.
but in order to be different, I was like, what's this one over here? They're like, oh, it's called trombone. And I was like, all right,
Yeah.
I'll do that. So I played trombone for a couple years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, before I ever like picked up guitar or anything. It was like my buddy played saxophone, I played trombone. Yeah,
That's cool.
Well, I think middle
Very
school
cool.
band is actually a great idea because like you learn to read music.
totally.
So even if you don't,
And collaborate with others.
yeah, well, yeah, totally.
How an instrument fits in an ensemble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of crazy looking back. Like our middle school teacher, when we moved back to California from Singapore, he was very much in the mold of the guy from what's that drumming movie where he's
Oh
like
yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
super, yeah.
J.K. Simmons.
I wanted to say
character.
J.K. Rowling.
Whiplash.
J.K. Simmons.
Whiplash.
Yeah.
Great movie.
He was like very like we like ended up winning a bunch of awards for junior high because he was just so like again.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Yeah,
like
oh.
Wow.
no joke, and like he made it, this big thing to be like moved up to first chair. Like you really wanted. Like I was like, all of a sudden I'm like totally buying into this.
Yeah, you're like, I gotta do it.
And so like I really liked like music in that, I don't know, that way. I started to like really appreciate like when we were playing well and stuff. But then high school came around and I didn't like the idea of carrying my trombone case through high school. And so didn't play anymore.
Did you move to voice?
No, in junior high I started playing guitar and just kind of I went that direction.
That's so amazing because I thought for sure you're going to say, so I did choir because of your harmonies and stuff. But yeah.
No,
Yeah, you have a great voice.
Oh, well, thanks,
Yeah.
man. No, we like very much did not, when it came to like singing, we didn't know what we were doing with harmonies. We just very like singing together, figured it out. We're like kept trying different notes until it sounded right. I mean, you guys too. I mean, we were
yeah.
obsessed with Zombies, Beach Boys, Crosby,
yeah.
Stills and Nash, and it was just basically like when I found out I was doing this podcast, I was kind of going back trying to find old demos, and they're all just like Crosby, Stills and Nash ripoffs. Like us trying to figure out like what we were doing, and they just sound like Crosby, Stills and Nash songs.
That is really
Awesome.
funny.
Yeah.
Classic California.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When you started playing guitar, like, were you, in like regimented lessons? Were you trying to like learn scales, or were you just like, fuck it, I'm gonna write?
I mean, yeah, it was, God, I feel like I'm trying to remember, but like, did we have guitar tabs like online at that
Oh,
point?
yeah.
Like, I feel like that was a new
Yeah.
thing where it was
Yeah.
like, instead of this book of like music
Oh, yeah.
notation, you could go and see it's like, all right, 3-5-5.
Yep.
Like,
I literally still have some of those printouts from when I was in high school.
yeah.
That's
Like, I feel
funny,
like
yeah.
that was like, at least for our generation, it's like such a helpful thing.
Yeah.
But I remember like my dad got me this, like I rented a Fender Strat, and he didn't even get me an amp because he was like, let's see if he like keeps
Yeah.
with it. So I was just like silently with my electric guitar with no amp, learning just songs from like the radio. And just like, I mean, it's funny then, like a couple months in, then I got lessons, or I went to some Mission Viejo music store to get lessons, and the guy just wanted to show me Led Zeppelin songs. But I
That's
think
so
I was
funny.
mostly listening to like probably like Linkin Park at
Yeah.
the time. So I wanted to be like, show me this song. And he's
Yeah.
just like, oh God, here's Black Dog.
I'm like, what a universal experience for kids in guitar lessons, as far as
Yeah.
I can tell. Because like you are not the first person to say something along
Yeah.
those lines, and I'm like,
I mean, it's true. It's kind of wild. I've actually weirdly, like over the pandemic, started almost going back to trying to just get better at guitar, like just trying to learn scales, learn things like that. But now there's so many more resources, like all these like YouTube guys that are like so good at explaining things that you're like, wow, like a whole generation of guitarists like have this now.
so who, I forget where I heard this, who said this, that they actually went on YouTube and found a video to help them relearn one of their old songs.
Wow.
Oh,
Like,
that's funny.
They had somebody else on YouTube like teach them their own song back.
That's amazing.
I know. I was like,
That's amazing. I mean,
what?
I feel like we're getting to that point. So, like we played our second record in full last year,
Yeah.
and some of the songs we hadn't played in like 10 years. And I was like, oh boy,
Yeah.
I remember this. But thankfully, like there was stems somewhere online. But yeah,
It's funny how that goes though, right?
Yeah.
Like where you're like, I should I should know this like better than like my parents' birthdays, you know?
Totally,
and somehow
yeah.
it's just like
Yeah.
in this foggy region of your brain.
It's also weird how certain things are muscle memory and as soon as you try to think about it, like if I'm playing a show and I'm like, wait, what's the next part? I can't do it. But if I just like go blank, my like hand will just play the thing,
your hand
you know?
knows.
And like it is weird.
Yeah, I would black out when I would play drums.
Yeah?
Just black out and then the show's over. Seriously, but
What
I feel
happened?
like those were always the good shows.
Yeah.
That's exactly what a
You
drummer
weren't
would say.
thinking. Yeah. I was blacked out. Yeah.
Not like alcohol blacked out.
Totally.
Yeah, it sounds like what a drummer would say. But so like, how did you start writing?
I mean, I got super into Weezer. That was a big
Nice.
thing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Blue album, obviously.
Yep. And I feel like, again, it starts from just kind of like learning other people's songs. And then thankfully, like, so I started playing guitar. And then I want to say like a couple months later, Taylor, who's also in the band, started picking
Shout
up
out.
guitar. And so we basically kind of learned together. And so it was just the two of us sitting around trying to play like Metallica songs, Weezer songs. And then, you know, at a certain point, you kind of just like start noodling, and then you're like, I think we're working on a song together.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It was more like
yeah.
metal stuff, huh? Because
Oh, that's
Weezer's got those
cute.
metal
Yeah.
chords. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny. Like I was kind of like, I can't find the recordings anywhere. I'm sure in my garage, but yeah, when I look back, I'm like, a lot of it is like kind of metal influence, but then also like emo.
Oh yeah.
Because then we got really into bands like Thursday,
Yes.
Juliana Theory,
Dude.
Further Seems Forever, Thrice even.
Oh yeah.
Not the first time that name's come up
Yeah.
on this
And it's, so
podcast.
it's like, I don't know, it was like a cool era where it was like, it wasn't showy guitar in the sense of like, you know, 80s metal where you're like doing like solos, but it was like kind of like technical in its own way. And so,
Syncopated, like
yeah,
chunking.
like a lot of like us, Taylor and I used to call it like we were just weaving. So like I would play and like it would just, we wanted it
that's
to sound like
cool.
this. It's a podcast, but I'm doing this with
Yeah.
my hands. And like, so like everything we would do would just be like two guitars, kind of like you couldn't tell which one was doing
Yeah.
what.
Love
and
that.
we just, that was
that is
our fun thing
really
to do.
beautiful, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's like, I mean, especially thinking about you guys being like super, super young and just kind of like figuring it out together.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what a fun way to like, interact with your best friend. Like, let's,
Totally.
yeah.
And like push each other probably.
Make
Yeah.
beautiful music together.
Yeah.
Was
I
there,
mean-
I'm so sorry. I was
No.
just going to say, was there any competitive aspect to it? I mean, because boys.
Because boys.
Well, I mean, it is funny, like looking back, like, you know, someone would get a specific amp and this amp has like reverb and distortion, and then someone else would buy like, I remember Taylor got like a Metal Zone guitar pedal, and so I was like, oh, all of a sudden now he sounds heavier than me. And then I remember he bought one of those, or his parents bought him for Christmas, one of those Warlock guitars.
Oh,
shit.
yeah.
It was like
That's
so heavy, but
That's
like
right.
I don't know. Like it just, you know, it was like this one-upsmanship and seeing how like heavy you could sound. But I feel like that once that like went away, it was just like, I think more that we got probably before we should have, we got really serious about making a band. Like even though we had no idea what we were doing, we're like, okay, like I'm going to go to your house every day after school. We're going to like write. And then, okay, now we got to find like a bassist. We got to find a drum. And we were just so like single-minded about it. Yeah, from way too young of
That's
an age.
awesome.
Well, I
I
don't know
love
though.
that.
I mean, honestly, that's probably a huge reason why you've had the career that you've had, because
you want it.
you were focused.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think in nearly any path you would choose in life, like being really focused on something and putting a lot of work into it. Like, I think you guys had a kind of a meteoric rise as a band, right? But like, I think what a lot of maybe your fans might not realize is like how much, or with any band really, but like how much work went into getting to that point.
Yeah.
And like legit, actually, this is going to sound kind of fangirl, but like I was in bands, you know, same time you guys were like playing Silver Lake Lounge, and me and my bandmates used to go, well, look what Local Native did, man. Like we were even, I kid you not, we were even considering
bands
like
said
moving into a,
Really?
we were even considering moving into a house together to just like work on music all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, because we were like, well, that seems to work.
yeah.
Yeah, I've said that about the Natives a bunch. Like we'd be on tour back in the day, and like the other 10 of us were like out like drinking or like hanging out, trying to meet girls, and they were like all on their laptops, like
Yeah.
sending emails. You know what I'm saying? Or like they were always working, and it's like, damn, that's what we need to do. You know, we saw it.
It is weird because like now, like Taylor and I, if we'll have a couple of drinks, we'll be like, Man, we should have had more fun back in the day. Just because I don't know, like even when I think back on like we like would play house parties in high school that we would set up, and we'd like set up the PA and make sure everything was good, and all our friends were just having fun, but we were just so, like like the show has to be good, and like
The sound.
or like on those tours with you guys, we're very much like, okay, like mind your voice, make sure like we were just so serious.
But respect, man. Like you guys have their career because of that. Yeah, totally paid off.
I mean, but
and
again,
people looked up to you in that way for that stuff.
Yeah.
Like all the bands that we played with were always like, the natives are doing this, it is.
No, literally every band in LA in like 2009 was like, or 2000, what was that? 10, 11, whatever. It was like, look what Local Natives did.
I mean, that's cool. I mean, it's crazy to hear, but yeah, it did feel like the culmination of like, that where Taylor and I were so focused. Then we just gradually met other people. Like, we met Kelsey, we met Andy, we met Matt, where it's like, okay, there's 5 of us that are singularly focused. I mean, let's see. Kelsey was in the hardcore band at the neighboring high school. He was like playing. It's so funny to imagine Kelsey in like a hardcore band, like playing like double kick, like just.
Were you guys like, we got to get this guy?
It is hard to imagine. And he did say, and I want to know if you agree, that he was the best drummer at his high school.
I think he was. He definitely made an impression on everybody. Because, everyone was wearing like skin tight, like girls' jeans and like had like the emo hair. But Kelsey had this like big fro with baggy jeans. And so he just like stood out. Like it was like, what is this guy doing in like a straight edge band?
That's right.
But he had such like a unique style. Like, I mean, looking back, God, yeah, he had this like creative force. Like even though he was a drummer, I remember he came over to my house one time and picked up a guitar. He's like, I wrote this song, and it was like 8 minutes long. I just had to sit there while he played like 1,000 chords. Like, and it was just like,
that's amazing.
It kind of like blew me away. I was like, wow, this guy can do it all. He can play everything.
Shout out Kelsey.
So,
What's really funny is that you kind of just told like your side of something that he also told us, which was that like, he gets a lot of, flights of wild fancy and wants to do all these like crazy things. And then you're the guy that's like, well, but what if we had a structure?
Yeah. I mean, I do think that comes from, so like I grew up listening to Top 40, and like I felt like I was a point of pride when I was younger that I could like tell you every Motown song on like the oldies radio. Like I just loved old music. Like, and I felt like that was like pop structure and hooks and like just classic songwriting. And then Kelsey was coming at it from being like, have you heard of Glassjaw? And like, just like loved like this music that I just never really got into. And I felt like it was like us, combining those things in a lot of ways. Like we were speaking different languages, but finding this like common ground.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned Motown too, which we'll get to with your solo stuff.
Oh yeah.
But like, we're not there
but
yet.
No,
okay.
I think that's really beautiful
Yeah.
too. Like just, kind of sort of learning from each other's differences and stuff. But do you have like maybe an early example of one of these songs you'd like to play for us?
What you dig up.
Like how I mean, I have
as early as
I
you
could.
can.
I mean, I found the first because I bought this like 8-track digital recorder and like tried to like learn how to use it, and I found like one of the first songs I did on that.
Oh, amazing!
And I put it in a Dropbox link. I don't know what the best way to.
This was a moment where you said you were like done with emo. Tell us that story.
Oh, I mean, Taylor and I had written some songs. We were, like I said, very influenced by like Thursday and at the, well, not even at the drive-in, but yeah, it was. And then there was a local band called Die Radio Die. They were from like San Diego, I think, and Noise Ratchet. And so all our early music was very like very influenced by those bands to like a crazy degree. But at a certain point, just kind of decided like, all right, I don't want to like write this kind of like more emo sounding stuff and kind of more diving into the 60s, 70s influences I had. And so it was my first attempt to try to write a song like that. So yeah, that's the demo I have.
What's it called?
It's called Let Down Your Guard.
That's right.
Love it.
It's kind of a multi-parter, as you'll hear. Okay.
Gibbard.
You think so?
Yeah, and also like Elliott Smith a little bit.
Really?
Vocals, yeah.
Candid speech without regard for social graces. I'm still in blankets with my eyes still closed.
I feel like the lyrics are still pretty emo, but the music is trying to do like a,
I love it. I hear the Crosby, Stills and Nash.
yeah, it's like straight up this Crosby, Stills and Nash song "Carry On."
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
the
yeah.
same guitar like riff.
They let me keep talking.
But this was a thing that we did a lot early on, where we just suddenly go to a new song,
I love
a new
it.
I
part.
love that organ, yeah.
Oh yeah, now we're a little bit Horse with No Name.
Yeah.
Birds.
Yep. But it was like, I loved, the Zombies, and there was like tons of
Yeah.
organ, or like the Doors,
That sounds
great.
and then lots of,
Yeah.
I mean, Crosby, Stills, and Nash always had really good bass lines, but I didn't know how to record drums, so I wouldn't have known how to put that on here.
So you did this on an 8-track.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
so cool. Like all live or just layered?
Just layered, just in my bedroom, trying to figure out how to use it. But yeah, this was like the first, and then I would have shown this to the guys and be like, can we do anything with this?
Oh, and here's part 3.
There's part 3.
The third movement,
Exactly.
if you will.
It just keeps going. But this, I think, is basically like a Kings of Leon song. So,
Is that the Balding Star?
yeah,
is
it's
that-
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
the end of one of their songs, and I'm like, I'll just do that for the end of my song.
Now, see, that lead part is starting to get into Local Natives territory.
The chords feel more like kind of Local Natives.
Yeah! Oh my God, thank you so much for sharing
is
that with us.
awesome.
I
Thank you.
loved it. And what? Remind me the name?
Let Down Your Guard.
Let Down Your
And
Guard.
you did.
Very-
And you
Yeah.
did.
And you were singing all the harmonies and stuff?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Oh, wow. I thought it sounded great.
What's weird to hear your voice, from when you're like 17
Yeah.
or whatever it was then.
Oh yeah.
That's
Just
amazing.
you're figuring everything out.
Well, also like you probably haven't made a recording with a shitty microphone in like a decade.
I
mean,
Yeah. I remember being like, because I got this like digital 8-track and I was like, I'm going to start recording bands. So I had like all these different
yeah.
bands come through, like, but not knowing how to record them. And so like,
didn't matter. You were
I remember they like maybe paid me like $100. I was like, oh shit. Like, I don't know like what I'm
making
going to
money.
do. Yeah.
Oh my God. I love it too. Cause I mean, the cool thing, right, about like doing this stuff when you're a kid is that like you have the time.
Yeah.
You have all this time to like sit around and fuck with something and learn
Yeah.
how to do it. Where like, if you want to try to pick up really anything new as an adult, it's like, well, I got to schedule an hour on Saturday afternoon
Totally.
to like
Yeah. I have
whatever.
a window here.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then the beautiful thing about your teenage years are you just have these oceans of time.
Totally.
And especially before you can drive, like you can't
Yeah.
really go anywhere unless you ask your parents. So it's just like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I guess I'm just going to sit in my room and play guitar for 6 hours.
And you're just like, you're totally naive. You just don't have anything to like, I don't know, put anything into context. You're just like, yeah, like I'm making music and like it's like awesome and people are
Yeah.
gonna love it. Like you just don't have,
Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't have like the inhibition of like, I
Yeah.
can't do this.
But that's
Exactly.
interesting because you had like that kind of feeling like, oh, I'm writing this for people like to listen
Yeah.
to, because like sometimes like people would write songs and just be like, oh, I'm just expressing it just for
Yeah,
me.
for me.
But like this was very much like you're like, yeah, I want to like share this with people, right?
Yeah, I mean, we so before that demo, we had recorded a couple songs that were more emo, but we'd put it out on a CD, like a 3-song thing. We recorded at this place called Love Juice.
Yeah.
Love
I
juice.
remember.
Ooh,
In
wow.
Orange County?
I think it was the one in the Inland Empire.
Sexy.
Yeah. And that was our first experience recording. And one of the songs, it at least seemed to do just really well, like within our high school. And we had played a couple of shows at this place called the Sing Sing in,
Oh, yeah.
in
Yeah.
Irvine.
In the Spectrum.
Yeah.
It's a Hollister now.
Oh yeah, I bet. I mean, God,
I feel like there was one in
everything's-
Hollywood too.
Yeah,
Sing Sing is a dueling piano bar.
yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about it
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
pod before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
Chain Reaction, some
Yeah.
place called Hoagie Bar Michael's
Hoagie Bar.
at the airport.
They
Yeah.
do not sell hoagies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rose, don't get it
They
confused.
don't sell hoagies, guys.
yeah.
But it was like all these places where you had to like sell tickets.
Oh my
you
gosh,
know,
that was
and-
such a scam
and-
back
oh,
in the day.
such
Oh,
a
like
scam.
pay
They
to
got us.
play.
Yeah, pay to
like,
play.
Still a scam.
And
That
there'd
was
be
huge.
like
Yeah,
8
still.
bands on the bill.
Oh my
and it was
gosh.
just like,
Oh, yeah.
God, we learned so many lessons early on. But we got this like taste of like, oh, this song. Like, every time we would put it on, like people would just be like psyched. And like in
Yeah.
high school, that was like a big thing.
Yeah.
It just felt really cool. And so it was the first sense of like, oh, we can make something and like people are going to hear it. And then, yeah. So,
Is that the song that ended up on like the little like K-Rock CD?
oh my God. How did you? Oh, Kelsey.
Yeah. Well,
I love that. Oh my
I was like,
God.
Well,
Kelsey's
I-
probably told you everything.
no, I have an insider tip on that one. I actually found them at their parents' house, but
Okay.
and Kelsey was like, "Oh my god!" But considering how much you guys have like scrubbed Cavil at Rest from the internet, I'm like, he probably just burned them.
I mean, there's a song called Flower of Roads. That would kind of be the first, I don't know. That one I bet you could find on YouTube, but
Ooh.
that was the one. Yeah, that was the
Get
first.
to work, listeners.
That was the first taste of like, oh, this song really feels like it's doing something.
Well, getting on like the major radio stations
Oh, yeah.
CD, because those comp CDs that they used to hand out from like radio stations or like even like a Hollister or something like
Yeah.
that was such a big deal.
Those are a massive
Yeah.
deal.
That like,
Oh, yeah.
and
I
especially
collected
for like
those.
a high school band. Come on, like
Yeah.
you deserve a little pat on the back for that. That's a big deal.
There was one that had like a like the OC on the cover, and I was like, oh, we're gonna get our song on the OC because that was like happening, but
Cool.
nope, it wasn't on the OC.
Didn't
Oh.
happen.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know what it was.
Well, it was just affiliated in
Yeah,
some way.
like I don't, yeah.
Because that was also a very big deal. Oh my God. Getting
Yeah.
a song on that show would have been
Totally.
like instant blow
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
That was a great soundtrack. Loved it.
Definitely.
Plus, it'd been like, oh, we're from the LC. That's cool. we
Every-
live it.
Like when we first started touring, that was like everyone said that. Like everywhere we went, they're like from the OC, like the OC. I was like, yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We all play water polo.
Yeah, yeah. Taylor did play water polo. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
That's so
he just,
funny.
yeah, he loved wearing the Speedo.
Yeah, of course. of
everyone
course.
does. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best part, really.
What was like the evolution of instruments like playing? Because by the time you recorded that demo, you had an organ and like that acoustic and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, there was just some like music shops in Mission Viejo where we
Yeah.
were growing up, and I think I just got some like, I don't even know what brand it was. That's the thing. I feel like you just don't know anything, so you're just going up based upon look. So
Yeah.
I remember being like, "Oh, that guitar looks cool."
Yeah.
Or, like, I had no idea. Like so, just it could have been anything, an acoustic guitar that I saw at the shop.
But that's so important because like my first guitar, like that's what the guy at the store said. He's like, you want to get a guitar that you think looks good because then
Yeah.
you'll always want to pick it up.
Totally.
And that's how you learn.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the next thing I got after that Strat, it wasn't even a Strat. It was like some knockoff thing, like Ibanez probably. But
Yeah.
then I got a SG, and I thought that was really cool. Like
Nice.
a Gibson SG with like the Marshall amp.
Well, that is
Oh, yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Combo amp
Duh.
or half stack?
Half stack.
Hell yeah.
You just, I don't know why we like you
Metal
have to have a
vibes.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you were into anything heavy, you would have been like,
Yeah.
And
hard stack
emo
all the
too.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they all had half stacks.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we would play like these, church basement shows and
Yep.
stuff,
Yeah.
and you had to like
Classic.
be louder than the drums, I guess.
Yeah.
But I remember the other big piece of gear was like Taylor had this like delay pedal. It was like the DL4.
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
And they looked like it was from like the Riddler or something. But that I feel like was the basis of so many songs that we had. Just all that delay.
Yeah.
It was like a big thing.
Yeah.
It worked for the
discover-
edge.
Yeah,
The discovery
yeah.
of effects.
Exactly.
Yeah, like game changer.
Yeah.
Wow. I know. And maybe,
But specifically the DL4, I remember everyone had one of those in like,
Yeah.
or, over time. But those things were awesome. You could do so much cool stuff. People started running their vocals through it.
oh, yeah.
Well, it's weird though, because then I feel like by the time Local Natives, we had started writing our first record. I don't know if it was just like what we were into at the time, but we were kind of like not using effects. It was like basically I just had like distortion, reverb, clean. I was just always trying to get like a good clean guitar tone, and so like in that way. Maybe it was like the Talking Heads or some influence where it was just like just dry, clean guitars and simple. Everything had like space. So yeah, that like first record, there really isn't like a ton of effects.
You know what? I think that might be the thing that I appreciate about it. It's
Yeah.
like there's like a real purity to that record.
Very
Yeah.
vocally driven. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that too.
I think that's what because like I also never found myself gravitating towards like a lot of like nerdier like soloing or just like shredding. It was always about songwriting. Even though now as I've gotten older, I'm like appreciating more. Like all of a sudden I'm like, John Mayer kind of ripped.
Yeah.
Like, I think we would see all these other bands that had way better gear or like, remember that band Minus the Bear?
Oh yeah.
That guy was
yeah.
doing some insane stuff, but I could appreciate it, but I was never drawn to it. I think, just we were always focused on like, okay, what's the song?
I'm kind of curious about the clean guitar tone because I actually think like that's almost like the hardest thing to get like a really good sounding clean
What
guitar
are your
tone.
amps? What are your
No, I mean, like not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I am a little curious
But
about
please
that.
do. Yeah.
No, it's kind of funny. It's been like a lifetime thing of like, then we got like Fender twin amps, but it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. You're getting these combo amps but all of a sudden like the reverb tanks are shaking like on stage. And so you're just like, okay, like that's kind of annoying. And then you would maybe rent one for a festival and it would be all blown out. And I'm like, I can't get the clean tone. So then like only a couple years ago, I was like, oh, why aren't I just playing like a Roland JC, like 120, like jazz chorus thing? And now, like, I've kind of done the most sacrilegious thing ever, but I've been playing through like a Helix, just like,
you're fine.
so I
That's
don't even
fine.
have to think about like
Yeah.
amps or anything like
I
that.
feel like everyone does that. You too does that.
Is
like
that
I feel like they
sacrilege?
just
No,
Well, I
think
would
it's
have
just
like a couple
feature.
years ago been like, oh, it's so corny, like,
No,
but
yeah.
now I'm like, I just don't want to think about that stuff. I just want to enjoy like the show.
I
And
know it's
in the
gonna sound
studio,
good.
you can just like play anything,
Yeah.
like all the vintage effects and amps, but like live, you just want it to like work. I
Yeah.
had too many shows where you'd go to step on a pedal and it just like would cut out and you're like, okay.
Yeah, no, I think like the more variables you can remove from
Totally.
the live setting,
Yeah.
like the more fun you're going to have. And if you're not having fun, what's the point?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that makes
Exactly.
sense. I mean, I think like it's also maybe like a benefit of experience to get over like being a purist about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I think, maybe we never, I know Taylor definitely didn't care enough. Like he just like, I bet I could like replace his guitar and he wouldn't even notice. Like it just like, we've never really been that crazy about gear, honestly, except for when we're in the studio.
I mean, that's really good to hear because I don't know, like I've heard the opposite too.
Oh,
of,
yeah.
Like for some bands are obsessed with that, and it doesn't really make a difference ultimately, right? Like
Yeah.
Well, like you should, in theory, be able to play your song on like a cigar box guitar and
yeah.
Yeah.
And
John Lennon said, "I'm an artist. Give me a tuba, I'll write you a song."
Bet he
Something like
could have. Yeah.
Well, gosh, there's so much territory to cover talking about like kind of the local natives journey, but I think maybe now we can like fast forward a little bit because you
Okay.
guys have had like an amazing career, but fairly well publicized. So I don't think we need to tell our listeners about it
Okay.
other than
Google
like
local
truly
natives.
like aspirational, like,
Awesome.
I mean, you've worked with some of my favorite people in music, but you're going through some like pretty big changes now with Kelsey leaving the band. So
Yeah.
like you've obviously put out a solo record, which is great.
Dude, I
Thank
love
you.
it.
Yeah, and you can
Appreciate
definitely
that.
hear that Motown influence that
Yeah?
you were talking about, being proud of being able to like name all the songs in the top 40. So that's kind of a
Yeah.
full circle moment there a little
Yeah.
bit.
Awesome. Appreciate that.
Yeah, well, to be honest, it was kind of interesting I was listening last night and going, wow, it's just become so clear, like what part of Local Natives is you, you know?
Interesting.
and then, so I'm sort of curious, like energetically for you, what is different about your solo? Like what do you feel like you're getting to kind of like pursue or explore on your own that you couldn't do with the band?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing, and maybe it's obvious, is just like getting to like sing and
Oh,
just
wow.
kind of like express, because I write a fair amount of the lyrics and a lot of the songs with Local Natives, even on the ones that maybe I didn't bring to the table. And yeah, there's like parts that I think certain songs I'm like, oh, maybe like another twist and turn, and this could have been a Local Native song, but I maybe took it like, I went left when I could have gone right, and now it feels more like, I was influenced by like maybe this like Afrobeat song, and like I took it way harder that way than maybe I would have when it had gone to the guys, and our process with Local Natives is so much about, democracy and compromise. And so sometimes maybe your like wildest like influences or something maybe get funneled out.
Right.
And so, yeah, I just got to explore like a lot of the kind of cinematic like 70s film score stuff I love. Like kind of, listening to a lot of Nick Cave.
Yes.
There's just like, I don't know how many like references to go into, but just a lot of
film
stuff that like
were they like particular films.
What's funny, like I just started listening to like a bunch of these like Italian like film composers from the 70s, and it's not even they're like films that anyone's heard of. They're like I looked into some of them. They're like some of them are basically like soft core like erotic movies. Like you're like, what is this
They
film?
loved
That's
those
so
movies.
funny.
Yeah, but like the music's like incredible. You're just
Yeah.
like okay, like, and they were just like seemed to be like churning them out. There's just so many of these guys that were making incredible music.
It's like 60s vibe, like lounge music
Yeah,
almost,
totally.
Yeah. It's literally almost like the bow chicka bow bow that people say. It's almost like an offshoot of what that music was created. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
of just creating that vibe, the like just amorous vibe.
Well,
put
like
it that
one of
way.
the guys, like I'm gonna say his name wrong, Piero Emiliani. He like also wrote that like Phenomena, that song. But then he's like also got all these incredible like songs that feel more like almost like spaghetti western, like Morricone style stuff. So just kind of like combining those influences again with like some of the more Motown vocals and more R&B stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's nice to be like, I don't have to ask anyone's permission.
Yeah, and that is an interesting thing because like it's so fun and freeing when you're like, oh yeah, I don't have to like worry like what anyone else is gonna think, like in the band at least. But then then when it comes time to releasing it, you're like, oh whoa, I kind of miss having the other guys. Like I'm like, what am I doing? Like you feel naked almost. It's a totally different feeling. It took me till I was like 37, 38 to put out my own music on my own because I've just been in this band since I was 13.
Oh, I was going to say, well, what else were
That's
you doing?
What you been up to?
Yeah. But it's been really like, I don't know, it's felt really good. It's been awesome. And it's also in a way like really made me appreciate the band and having that in my life. It's just been nice to have like both outlets,
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's great. It's great that you've had the opportunity to do it. The record sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there a plan to play any shows?
I mean, I would like to, I don't think I'm like that eager to get out on tour. I think like I
No,
tour
just like
enough
local
with the
LA,
band.
yeah.
Yeah, but like,
Yeah,
man,
do
it'd be
a
cool to
one-off.
play a hometown show, just get some friends together and try to figure out how to play them live. Cause, I played everything myself and produced it like, at my house. And so I was like, man, it would be cool to hear what these sound like live.
Yeah.
Damn, that's all home recordings?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That
Yeah.
sounds really good.
That would be
Thank
so.
you.
Yeah,
you
you
could
gotta
do a
do
show.
gotta do a show. Do a show.
Yeah.
Make it super vibey too. Like, I mean, gosh, what are some venues in LA?
Well,
would,
I mean,
mean,
Lodge Room.
Before, like it was like last year I was going to this spot in Highland Park called ETA a lot. It was like this,
Yeah.
they were having like jazz
They're
nights.
closed.
I know, and they
So
closed
sad.
down. But I met so many like awesome musicians that were playing there, and I kind of always dreamed about like getting some of those people together to
Oh,
like,
yeah.
to like, even if it means like reinterpreting the songs for a live setting or to
Oh,
make
cool.
them more like open them up so they're more
Wow.
like jams. I think that would be really fun.
That'd be
There's-
so cool.
Yeah.
There's
Oh, they
no
must be
shortage of good
around.
musicians
Yeah.
around.
Just because the
Totally.
place closed, the people might still be around.
Oh, they definitely are. I think they
Oh, yeah.
mostly play at Zebulon now.
Oh,
Oh
sweet.
yeah, I
There
was
you
gonna
go.
say like there's basically like two smaller venues left in LA. It's
Yeah,
Zebulon
yeah.
and the Lodge Room, but maybe just like a one-off Ryan Hahn show for the future. I mean, like, what's going on with Local Natives? Are you guys gonna keep going? Are you guys gonna like? I mean, do you know?
Yeah, no, we definitely know. I mean, I think, unfortunately, I think it had been like a long time coming with Kelsey. I mean, I don't know if he's talked about this, and definitely don't want to like say anything out of turn. I think in a weird way, everyone always says like a band is like a marriage. You're married
yeah.
to like 4 other people, and I think it kind of feels that way in this kind of, I don't know, divorce, I suppose. And the way we've been doing it, he's like been touring with us all year. He's like, it's kind of like a slow phasing out.
Yeah.
And it, I don't think any of us like necessarily like wanted this, and I think this is Kelsey's decision. So maybe I can only let him speak to it. But there was kind of never a doubt with the rest of us that we wanted to continue. And I don't mean that as any shade to him, but I think like there's just so much that we still feel like excited to do, and we still feel like inspired when we make music together. And I think it's sad for sure. Sorry to see Kels go, but I don't know. It kind of just feels like we're already kind of working on new music, and we're just like pretty excited to see like what we can do now. You know, maybe I think the live thing will probably be where it's the most different. Obviously, like, you know, we'll have to get someone else, maybe more than one person to do what he does. But I think that like could open us up to like some cool possibilities and, you know, maybe different sounds. So
and you singing more probably, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Hell yeah.
I think we'll just have to get creative and see like what comes. But, you know, all that to say that I think we are pretty excited about like the future.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Because that would be kind of a bummer to just be
Yeah,
like, well,
for sure.
packing it in.
Yeah, exactly. There's just so much more that I think we want to do.
Well, that's great. I'm really glad to hear it. And, you know, I was trying to research like you specifically outside of the band. And I found, I think it was from like this interview you did with like the Pepperdine paper a million years ago or something.
Yeah.
And you were talking about like the process in Local Natives and how at a point almost felt like you were all the same person. And I thought that was like, it was really beautiful, but it kind of reflected on like how it's sort of bittersweet because, I mean, a new relationship can be kind of like that too, but you're never going to feel that exact thing forever. Like it's almost, I mean, it's been a really long lasting soap bubble, but but you know, you guys literally grew up together and then, you know, have like had kids and gotten married and like all these major life changes. So it makes sense that, you know, you're not going to be the same person forever and that's okay.
100%. And it is funny to hear that. Like, I'm like, whoa, I said that, you know, like
you did, yeah.
Because it is an example of like so often in interviews, I want to say something and like really believe it. But like, obviously you're always going to be changing. So it's like, clearly I believed that then, but hearing that now, I'm like, you know, so much about growing up is like kind of like individuating, kind of like, you know, we're all like, we were living in a house together. We were in a van together. We were kind of the same people and we listened to the same things. But now it's like, yeah, you just kind of grow up and you have different experiences. And I think, I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
I think like it brings, you know, different dynamics. I think the hard part is keeping everyone kind of dreaming the same dream. Yeah. And clearly like Kelsey just kind of stopped dreaming that dream. And so I think, you know, at a different point in my life, I think it would be like, oh, this is like the worst thing ever. But I do think it is like just growing up and becoming your own person, becoming your own people and kind of like respecting that and then like loving each other, you know, even though we're not the same person anymore.
Right.
You're like, I respect like, you know, who you've become.
Yeah. Well,
I have like Landslide playing in the back of my head right now.
I know.
I'm getting all misty listening to this.
Well,
I mean, it is funny even talking about it, you know, like I think like I haven't talked about it like, you know, outside of just with my friends and stuff. So it is, yeah, it's a heavy thing, but you know.
Yeah, well, but you know, like the only constant in life is change, right?
Yeah.
And it can be ultimately positive. But you said something else in one of these old interviews, and I think this is a good time to bring it up, where the interviewer asked you, like, you know, what your sort of aspiration for the future of the band was or the future generally. And you basically just said, like, well, you know, I would just like to keep playing music as much as possible and just like keep doing it and see where it goes.
Yeah.
And
Since he was 13.
did that and are still doing that.
Yeah.
So, like, good job.
Oh, yeah.
Truly.
Thank God. Yeah, I mean, I think whatever, you know, 17-year-old me, you know, would be psyched. I think in a way, I've heard a lot of other musicians talk about this, but I think when you're kind of just starting out, you are excited because each step feels like a step up and you're going to the next venue and you're, you know, well, I don't know, some people, the goalposts are always moving.
Yeah.
And I think if you live that way, you're kind of never going to be kind of like satisfied. And it's cool to be ambitious. And I think we have still a lot of ambitions, but I also think there's something to be said for like gratitude and just being like you said, like we're still making music. for a living, you know, with our friends. And it's like that in itself is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just focusing on what's important and being grateful to be doing it. I think that just takes time to get to that place.
Sure. Well, you know, you get to feel your feelings, but ultimately, you know, onward and upward.
For sure.
Do you want to play one of your new songs for us?
Yeah, I
love
see a
to.
guitar right there.
That's a sweet guitar you got there.
You know, I mean, I do think I haven't totally figured out how to like represent them, like just like on a guitar. There's such like productions right now that I feel like maybe just playing the record would probably be the best.
Which one do you want to spin? You want to set it up?
Yeah. Should I play? I mean, I could play this. The first song that I put out is called Marcella.
I love that song.
Yeah.
I would be so down.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Yeah. It kind of came about like one night I'd gone out with some friends to a bar, and whenever there's a screen on at a bar, I can't help but like look at it. And it was just playing Jackie Brown, the Quentin Tarantino movie. So I just like, I don't know, like I kept getting like glimpses of the movie and then like the soundtrack, and I was like, I came home late that night and just kind of like made this, I guess you could call it a beat with like these like this brass arrangement and these strings, and I just wanted it to sound like some like old like Isaac Hayes thing or something.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just like didn't listen to it for a minute, and I came back to it and I was like, oh, that's awesome. And just like so I just kept coming back to it over years, but it was just this thing that I just have always loved, and I was like, all right, I'm making it a song, and it's gonna be the first one I put out. So yeah, that kind of became Marcella.
And who's Marcella?
I mean, my wife asked that. But her name's Nada, and it doesn't have enough syllables to fit the melody. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So Nina from the Cantina because it rhymes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious.
I love that. So all right, let's listen to
hear it.
Marcella.
All right.
that song.
Oh, thank you.
No, the
Thank
whole
you.
record is great.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Appreciate
coming.
that. Thanks for having me. This has
Yeah.
been awesome.
Thank you
Ryan
so
Hahn.
much, Ryan.
Yeah.
I love hearing about our guests who basically grew up in their band. I'm thinking about Eric Kanata and Young the Giant, Travis Miguel and Atreyu. You can hear those stories in our earlier episodes. And of course, obviously, Local Natives. I think they have a really special story that is continuing to unfold and hopefully will be for a very long time. We are so excited for Ryan's solo release. It's great to hear him sing lead and experiment with some different styles. Fingers crossed he decides to play some live shows to support the record, but you can support his record right now by listening to it. Make sure you check that out on your preferred streaming service. Give him a follow on socials in case he decides to announce any tour dates. Are we lobbying for this? Maybe. You can follow us on socials as well, and please subscribe to the podcast, rate and review us on your favorite podcasting platform. As always, all the links will be in the show notes. Now that we have collected 3 out of 5 members of the Natives in Podcast Pokemon, we will bid you adieu till next week. Bye!